All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling the huge ideas from Yuval Noah Harari's incredible book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. It's a book that really gets at that strange feeling, That feeling that the big, comfortable story we've all been telling ourselves about progress and where we're headed is starting to completely fall apart.
For a long time, it really felt like we had the script for the future all figured out. It seems so certain. But Harari hits us with this line, the end of history has been postponed. That whole comforting narrative, well, it turns out it wasn't a final chapter after all. And now we're all kind of left looking around asking, okay, so what on earth comes next? So, what was this grand story anyway? Well, for most of the last century, it was the story of liberalism. And this wasn't just another idea floating around. It pretty much became the entire world's default setting, the very definition of what progress was supposed to look like. And I mean, just look at the track record. It was an absolute knockout. First, it defeats fascism back in 1945. Then, it goes head-to-head with its biggest rival, communism, and wins. The Berlin Wall comes down, the Soviet Union collapses, and by the time we hit the 2000s, this whole package deal, democracy, human rights, free markets, it felt unstoppable. It was like Harari says, the only game in town. And it seemed like it was just the inevitable future for everybody. But that triumphant story? Yeah, it's being completely shattered. And the thing doing the shattering, according to Harari, isn't some new political ideology. No, it's technology. Specifically, two massive converging revolutions that are changing the very definition of what it means to be a human being. Now, this is a really important idea to grasp. For basically all of human history, we've been hacking the world outside of ourselves. We built cities, we designed irrigation systems, but we could never really hack the world inside. We couldn't stop ourselves from aging or literally redesign a brain. Well, now, these two revolutions, infotech and biotech, they're merging. And suddenly, we have the power to engineer not just our environment, but life itself. And this fusion of technology is creating a totally new kind of fear. See, back in the 20th century, the big struggle for ordinary people was against exploitation. But the great struggle of our century, well, it might be against something way, way worse. And that fear is irrelevance. This isn't about being underpaid. It's about the terrifying possibility of not being needed at all. As AI and automation just keep getting better, the masses could go from being an exploited working class to what Harari calls a useless class, a group of people with no economic or political value to the system. And believe me, it is much harder to fight against irrelevance than it is to fight against exploitation. This question just cuts right to the heart of the whole problem. I mean, think about it. All of our political models from the last century were built on the idea that the working class was essential to the economy. But what happens when technology makes the masses lose that economic power? How do you organize? What leverage do you have left? The old playbooks, they just don't work anymore. So, the threat isn't just about hacking the job market, it's about hacking actual human beings. The very same technologies that could make us economically irrelevant could also make us completely controllable. Harari's big argument here is that what we like to call our free will, or our intuition, is really just incredibly sophisticated pattern recognition. Our feelings, love, fear, anger, they're just the result of billions of neurons firing away, calculating probabilities. They're basically just biochemical algorithms. And if they're algorithms, they can be figured out, predicted. And yes, they can be hacked. And here's how that could actually play out. With enough biometric data from, say, your smartwatch or your phone, an external algorithm could genuinely come to know you better than you know yourself. It could predict your choices before you make them. It could learn exactly which emotional buttons to push to get you to buy a product or to vote for a politician. And that, Harari warns, is a really slippery slope toward a digital dictatorship. And these aren't just some far-off abstract threats. They're forcing us into these impossible ethical corners. I mean, take a self-driving car in an accident where there's no good outcome. How do we program it? Should it be the Tesla altruist and sacrifice you, the owner, to save a bunch of people? Or should it be the Tesla egoist and save you no matter what? So just stop and think about that for a second. There was a study that found most people say, oh yeah, the car should be altruistic. It should save the pedestrians. But then when they were asked which car they would personally buy, yeah, you guessed it, the vast majority chose the car that would save them. This is the kind of ethical minefield we're walking into, where our ideals are in a direct collision with our own self-interest.
Okay, so if the liberal story that we were all so used to is crumbling, where are people supposed to turn for answers? Well, a lot of the time, they look backwards. They reach for the old, familiar stories of nationalism and religion. But Harari's point is that these old answers are just not built to handle our new, global-sized problems.
Because the biggest challenges we're up against today, they're global. I mean, think about it. No single nation can solve climate change by itself. No country can put a fence around AI to regulate it or stop a nuclear war on its own. These problems absolutely demand global cooperation. But nationalism, by its very nature, pushes us in the exact opposite direction. It pushes us toward us versus them.
So all this brings us to the final, and maybe the most important question of our time. If the old stories are failing us and the old definitions of power don't apply, what is going to define wealth and power in this new century?
In the past, the big fights were always about controlling land, and then later about controlling the factories and machines. Well, now, the struggle is about controlling the flow of data. Data is the new oil. It's the new land. It is without a doubt the most important asset in the world today.
Which leads us to this final, absolutely crucial question. Because if data gets concentrated in the hands of a tiny few, humanity itself could split, not just into rich and poor, but maybe into different species altogether. So this question, who owns the data? Who owns your DNA, your brain, your life story? It isn't just about economics or politics. It might be the single most important question for the future of life itself.